What's up, guys? Welcome back. It has been another week, which means that it is time to review another episode of The Last of Us. And although it's only been a week, it has been 3 months for Joel and Ellie. So let's talk about it. How was the episode? What'd you think? Let me know in the comments and let's jump right in, shall we? In general, this was yet again another great episode. The Last of Us continues to put out hit after hit after hit, and although this may seem to be one of the, if not slowest episodes of the season so far, that in no way means that this is a boring episode. In fact, this might be the most humanizing relationship building episode that we've seen so far. And from beginning to end, there's a lot of good humor in here. There's a lot of, throwbacks to things that we've heard or seen or talked about or things that may have been mentioned. There's also, foreshadowing of things to come. And it does differ from the game quite a bit because we do end up in a location that is actually in the second game, not in the first game. But this, like I said, we start off with a 3-month time jump with Joel and Ellie, and they have actually gone a long way. They have gone from KC all the way, escaping those infected that overtook Kathleen and her crew, all the way to Wyoming. And we don't know exactly where in Wyoming, which is why we start this episode with them basically having, a stick up. They're, have a couple people at gunpoint because they need to know where are the fireflies, where are we at. Maps can be a little hard for Joel to read for some reason. By the way, let's figure that out. It's been like 20 years. Like, you made it from Austin all the way to Boston, and then you don't know how to read a map, but you're supposed to be like this great tracker, a person who gets things done. Something like that doesn't seem to add up. Like, I understand that he had tests, but he was Tommy's protector, right? So I imagine that he probably should know how to read a map at this point, but we'll just go ahead and push that thing to the side. But like I said, we open up on Joel and Ellie sticking up a couple people for information, and they tell them the dangers of continuously heading west, which I think is a very interesting thing. It seems like this couple has already previously isolated themselves. They didn't wait for the infection. They were already off the grid, which means this is nothing new to them. The only difference is that, oh, hey, that river over there, well, we just don't go past that one because there's a group or something going on over in that area over there, and they're just leaving bodies. Like, they're leaving bodies as warnings, and some of them are not even affected. And that's something that kind of keeps coming back. Are you willing to hurt someone who's not infected to stay alive, to prosper, to keep those around you safe? We've seen that, Joel has admitted to Ellie that he's been on both sides of that ambush play before. And up until now, I thought that we were kind of thinking it was with Tess, and it may have been. But we actually learned through a conversation with him and Tommy. Yes, guess what? We meet Tommy again. Let's go ahead and start there. But we also learned that Tommy was also a part of these plans, and it has riddled Tommy with guilt. So, like I said, once we kind of figure out these two people who are being stuck up by Joel and Ellie, we end up being ambushed at this river that they said never to go past because, you know what, why take a Native American's warning? It just doesn't, nobody does that, and it always turns out fine, right? No. Let's go ahead and start listening to the Native Americans. Hey, that place, that one right over there, it's haunted. That river over there, don't go over there. There's some bad shit that happens. For some reason, people just be like, yeah, Native Americans, what do you know? You act like you've lived here forever. Shut up. Anyway, so after we find out a little bit of information, we start to see that Joel is really starting to doubt himself. He starts to have panic attacks. He's gripping his chest but blaming it on the cold. We see that Joel is really starting to doubt who he is and his ability to keep Ellie safe. Now, once we cross the River of Death, where we're advised the best way to keep going west is to head east, and we, like I said, we disregard all of that. We end up being ambushed by a group of riders on horses and masks that circle us up, and we come into one of the most tension-filled, yet also one of the most interesting type of scenes where we see a dog being used to detect infection. Now, we know that Ellie, if you have one of the scanners and, scans your neck, is going to ring as infected, but is a dog going to pick it up? Because apparently these dogs are trained or just aware of the infected. And we saw this in the first episode, if you remember, with Sarah, whenever she first, caught the neighbor's dog outside. Apparently dogs or animals in general may be a little bit more inept to, sensing where the infected are, or how far along they are, or whatnot. But we see that it doesn't have any effect on Ellie, but you see Joel's face drop in this scene. It is one of those things where he's like, oh shit, this could be the end of it right now. I've already put my gun down. We're surrounded by people on horses. They have the high ground. Shout out to Obi-Wan. And they're armed, and there's a dog that is now going to, in their words, last chance for a bullet, it's going to tear you to shreds. Which also brings up another question that I have. Are animals capable of being infected? Are we going to have like Cocaine Bear running around somewhere in this, next season? Just be like, oh, well, you know what? We got bloaters and we got Cocaine Bears out here. I think it'd be interesting, but they said that this dog will tear them apart. So, do animals not have the same transference as people do from the infected? Because we know that a bite is typically how most people can get infected, but if a dog bites you and it breaks your skin, then it gets some of the blood in its mouth, does it work the same way? I don't know. It would be interesting because we haven't seen animals be infected. We see monkeys in this episode. We've seen people on horses. We've seen dogs. But we haven't seen any of these things be infected, or even corpses of animals that may be infected, or if I'm not mistaken, I may be mistaken, but we also haven't seen any scavenger type animals, birds, ants, or anything like that, eating upon the infected. Do they just choose to disregard this? Are they able to be infected? Or are they just like, spoiled food, not for me? But it's a very interesting idea, and I think it kind of needs to be touched on just because I'm one of those people who really enjoys the details and really fleshing out the world. But anyways, I digress. Now, after this group, realizes that Joel and Ellie are not infected, they get onto horseback and they go to a town that is being run by electricity. It is a full shelter, and it's survivors. They are communists. Their words, not mine. They're at a commune, and so they call themselves communists. And this is where we have our rendezvous and finally, reunion with Joel's brother Tommy, where they have, a big hug, which leads to one of the best acted scenes in the entire series and probably of the last few years. And I'm talking about the scene where Joel and Tommy have a very heart-to-heart conversation. Joel opens up about how he's feeling weaker, how he doesn't think he's going to be the one to be able to keep Ellie safe, that Ellie's going to be better off if Tommy takes her. He doesn't think he can make the journey. And this kind of rings true of like that new dad-father type of mentality that you always hear of parents having. I personally don't have kids, but I know that a lot of my friends who have children, and even talking to people, my parents' friends, that you always just doubt yourself whenever you're, becoming a parent, because that's a big responsibility. And I think that might be why this is starting to weigh extra heavy on Joel. One, Ellie is vitally important, not just to him, not just to someone, but to the world. What she has and this immunity is vital, and he feels so responsible for it. But then also, I think this may be Joel really starting to accept Ellie as a daughter. He is becoming yet again a new father and going through those doubts, going through the, am I able to do this? What if I mess up? What if I hurt her? What if I can't do what I'm supposed to do? And we see a bunch of these kind of things starting to happen. Joel, consistently saying that he's going to keep watch and falls asleep. He can't hear particularly well, when Sam and Henry sneak up on him over the glass. You see that Ellie is having to take more and more responsibility, and that kind of is interesting, and I hope that we learn a little bit more about what happened in that 3-month time span, because you see that Ellie and Joel's relationship has prospered a lot. They are still kind of at arm's reach for each other, but they're starting to joke a little bit more, and Joel's able to, quickly come up with who Ellie's favorite astronaut is. Those little details show that Joel is paying attention, but he is having those doubts about himself. And I think that overall, giving Ellie the choice, towards the end of the episode, who she wants to have take her between Joel or Tommy, and her quickly just going with Joel because it's that comfort. Joel is the only person that has really stuck by Ellie. Other than this, she's kind of been just, handed off from one group to another group because of her importance, but Joel has been the only person that has really started to show an interest. And we see that their relationship continues to grow, from the sharing of alcohol to teaching her how to shoot a gun better, aka hunting. He's definitely taking the time to become more and more of a father figure, which, like I said, I think is why he's starting to have these panic attacks, why he's, really feeling insecure and having all these self-doubts. It would make sense for somebody who is becoming a father, especially for the first time after having shut out everybody for basically 20 years. Yes, him and Tess were close, but it didn't seem like they had a very sentimental relationship. They had a relationship of essence. If I need you and you need me, because together we can survive and we can at least make it. We may not be perfect, but at least we'll make it together. And so now I feel like he's really starting to realize that it is more important than just himself. Survival is not sufficient, as what they said in Station 11. As Ellie and, Sam were saying, endure and survive. It's a key thing in this series. Overall, I think this was another great episode. Leaves us on a major cliffhanger. And I'm not going to go through all the details. Guys, there's plenty of other videos that are breaking down the Easter eggs. But I do want to talk about each episode and talk about how great of a show this actually is. From all fronts, and I've said it before and I'll continue to say it, Bella Ramsey and Pedro Pascal are just incredible on this show. This is a masterclass of acting. The little nuances of Joel's face, the flinches, the doubts, the tears, the fighting back tears. It's one of the things that every actor should pay attention to. This is what storytelling is. Well, let me rephrase. This is what compelling storytelling is. And overall, I think this is just a great watching experience. Like I said, this is going to be a little bit of a slower episode. There's still some action sequences and things that happen, but it is more of that relationship building. And I think that is something that Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin have done exceptionally well. They've taken the time to really dive into the emotional aspects, because this is not about the infected. It is about people on a journey together in a world that is infected by something. But it's not about that infected world. It's about the relationships and what you do as a person. How are you willing to survive? Who are you willing to take care of? And the limits that you're willing to go to. And your vulnerability. What are you willing to do? And we see that with Tommy as well in this episode. We learned that the reason that Tommy has kind of isolated himself is because he's got a wife. She's now pregnant, and she happens to be the leader of one of these groups. But I will say, I don't necessarily agree with the fact that Tommy had to completely isolate Joel. There definitely could have been a way for Tommy to get a message to Joel to let him know that he was okay, so he didn't have to have all these situations occur over a car battery with Tess and all the hostility that seemed to be going at the Boston quarantine zone. But overall, great episode. I'm glad that we got Tommy back. The cliffhanger is exceptional. Now, I will say that with such a big cliffhanger, I am kind of upset that we're not going to immediately pick up on this next week's episode after this cliffhanger, because we're going to be going into a lot of Ellie's backstory, which is incredible. If you've ever played the games or you have been paying attention to a lot of the subtle details that Ellie's been saying, this next episode is going to flesh out a lot of that stuff, including, spoiler, one of the little things about why she is so excited about that arcade game in the first couple episodes where her and Joel end up at that gas station. But overall, guys, The Last of Us continues to impress and progressively get better and better and better with each episode. From the way that the sets look, that doesn't look very heavily CGI'd. I know that there is a lot of CGI in here, but it doesn't look like a Marvel movie right now where it's just a bunch of people on a CGI screen. It's, the set is dressed well, the acting is fantastic, the storytelling, the pacing, all of it seems to be lining up almost exactly where you want it to be. And if you are a fan of good storytelling, good movie making, then this is where you want to be every Sunday. We unfortunately only have a few episodes left, but based off of where the first game ends, I can see the path that we're heading down for this season finale, and it is going to be a good one. All right, guys, that's going to be wrapping it up here, talking about The Last of Us Episode 5. Is it episode 5? No, it's episode 6. Episode 6. Sorry about that. But anyways, guys, I thoroughly am enjoying the show. If you're enjoying the show too, drop a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Are you excited for, this flashback that we have coming up? Do you wish that we would just be jumping right back into whether or not Joel is going to make it with that wound that he has? Either way, guys, I'm excited for another week of The Last of Us coming on Sunday. And like I've said before, it is the only complaint I have about this show is we have to wait every week to get a new episode. But HBO knows what they're doing. They've done it well, and they've done it for a long time. So like I said, drop a comment down below. Let me know what you thought about this week's episode. Let me know what you think about the series as a whole. And until next time, guys, I'm your host, Lucas, here at Houston Productions. I will catch you in the next one. Happy watching.